lighten it up a little bit. Yeah, start by lightening up your pencil marks so they're not too dark so we don't mess up our light sides of our forms. Nico, tell me which form is farthest away from us in our tablescape.
Wait, what did you say?
Tell me which form is farthest away.
The cylinder.
Is that what you were pointing, Cal? Good. Yes, the cylinder's farthest away. You could argue that the sphere is kind of on the same level, but the bottom of that sphere is farther down than the bottom of the cylinder. Remember, we look at the bottom of the objects for placement. Anthony, which of these forms is right in the middle?
Right in the middle, the cube.
The cube. Grace, which of these forms is closest to us? The cone or the circle. Those are kind of like the same distance, right? Good. I'm glad you guys understand the placement of things. It's important because when you guys are placing objects, I'm going to be like, that don't make sense. You'll know why. Okay, we're going to put our light source, top right corner. Sorry, top. Yes, that is the right. I don't know my left and rights all the time, so. So now we're going to think about how our shadows and parts of a shaded form, like our core shadow, reflected highlight, midtones, change or are affected by the objects around them. Okay, so we're going to start closest to our light source and work farthest away, okay, because there aren't going to be any shadows cast from other objects on the object that is closest to the light source. So on this sphere, when we are shading, what shape should our directional lines be in when we are shading this sphere? Is that, okay, too wordy of a question. Literally, everyone, point your pencil to the camera and literally in my face and show me how you're going to move your pencil when you shade that sphere. Kaylee's got it. Circles. Okay, if our light source is here, then our shadow for that sphere, our core shadow, is going to be over here, okay? I'm just going to lightly scribble that in for now. And then we're going to shade all of our forms in a second. Now, the cast shadow, the shadow that is normally cast on the surface of the table, is going to be interrupted by this cube. Because my sphere is taller than my cube and my light source is higher, some of the shadow, the cast shadow from that sphere, is going to land on the top of that cube. It's not going to land on the front of it, it's just going to land on the top. That shadow is also going to replicate the shape of the form. So it's going to be a circular shadow that's cast on the top there. Does everyone agree with that? That like that's where that shadow would be? Give me a nod. Or shake your head if you're like, I don't see it. Shadows, especially when there's multiple, are kind of a guessing game. You have to think through, okay, how would that land on that form? Okay, let's do our cylinder next. Allie, stop me when I am on the vertical line that my core shadow should be for my cylinder.
Right there.
Boom, she's right, okay? Farther to the left, farther away, but we still want to have some of that reflected highlight. Remember, our directional lines are vertical and curved with the cross contours of a cylinder. Okay, so that's where that core shadow is going to be. And then my shadow for my cylinder is not going to be affected. It's going to go sideways and then off the table. Okay, the light that hits the cube, okay, it's going to be a little bit darker. Its shadow is going to be a little bit blurrier, okay, because it's got this object in front of it. It's almost like a reflected shadow, kind of. You can think about it in those terms. The smaller sphere is in between us and that cube and that light source. So parts of that cube shadow are going to be on that sphere, but the shadow is going to bend along the lines of along the curve of the sphere. So when we think about that square, we want to think about the cross contours of the sphere. So that shape of that shadow fits that form. It wouldn't be a straight line. Almost never use straight lines on a sphere. So even though the shadow comes from a straight object, it lands on a curved object. Does that make sense? We trekking? If you're confused, be like, I don't even get it. Because now's the time to be confused, not in 2 weeks. Okay, this cast shadow is fine. Okay, it's going to go probably right to the edge of the table. But it's unimpeded. And then that shadow is going to kind of come out from the square too on that surface of the ground. Surface of the table, ground, table, ground. And we also might see some of that shadow behind the sphere a little bit from the cube.
My shadow's not even at the end of the table.
That's fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. Do it to make it yours correct, okay? If yours isn't exactly the same as mine, trust your eye more than you're trusting my example, okay? Trust the process more than like the product. Okay, so our core shadow for that sphere, same placement as our other sphere, same shape. And there's going to be that C shape around. Okay, core shadow is going to be real dark on this side of the cube. And then the cone. Okay, our cone shadows are not affected by anything. Core shadow is going to be on the left side. Say what? Is that a question or just sounds? And then that cast shadow is not going to hit anything either. It's going to just land on the table. Okay, let's grab your favorite B pencil. I like to kind of start with my 4B pencil. And then let's shade these forms in the blended technique. Blended technique. These are small, okay? So I want you to use small circles. But I also want you to think about directional line now. So I can shade in the blended technique, but still moving my pencil along the curves or along the contours. So while I'm blending out my shadow, I'm still going to move my pencil kind of in those curvy motions. You can shade these forms in whatever order you want, but your goal is to keep this side of your hand clean. Everyone look at me. Everyone look at me. Okay, this side of your hand clean. Look at it now. Does it already have graphite on it? If it does, erase it from your hand or wash your hand. So I'm a righty, okay? So I'm starting over here. If you're a lefty, I would start on this side, okay? If you just want to shade whichever forms first that you want to shade, by all means, shade them. But keep your hand off the paper or use another scratch sheet of paper, okay, to block your hand from your graphite. Graphite smears. We know this. Okay, and we know that when we smear it around with our hand, it mixes with the oils in our skin, and then we can't erase it as well. We're going to include all the parts of the form, okay? Highlight, midtones, core shadow, reflected highlight. Now, if you don't know how to shade some of these forms, what should you do? Hold on, let me ask a more specific question. We have done like weeks of graphite exercises in your sketchbook. If you're struggling with how to shade these forms, what should you do? Tell me, Kaylee. Yeah, look back at our sketchbook notes. Look at that page with all the cross contours and all the forms. Boom, cylinder, shaded.
Cohagen,
What?
are you trying to like make us not get any graphite on our pencils so like we're getting better at shading?
Start with this. Okay. Clicking through just one at a time, okay? I have afternoon appointments if you ever want to meet like virtually, or if you're here in the building and you want to just stay after. We have another bus that run at 2:45. You can just stay. I'm running the working afternoon if you want. If you just need the space, it's easier to get work done here than at home. Everything we've done is all on that page. But it is like, it's my job to help you, okay? But, I'm gonna put it here forever, so whenever you're stumped, you need to let me know. And if it's just like, just tell me what to do next, let me do that, okay? Just let me do whatever you need to get you caught up. Any questions, comments, concerns? Are you feeling okay? You doing okay with everything? No problem. Keep going. Keep shading your forms. Nico, ask your question again.
Are you telling us not to like? Are you giving us like a goal not to get any graphite on our hands so like we get better at shading?
I don't want you to get any graphite on your hands so you don't smear it all over your paper.
Oh.
Because that graphite fog that we get when we like smear our graphite around with our skin, that hurts our technique.
I thought you wanted us to do that so we can get better at like holding our pencil like this. Like getting like lighter.
Oh, my hand is resting on my paper. Like it's sitting over here. I'm not just. No, okay. You can touch your hand to your paper.
I know. I'm just saying like you would get us into the habit for like not like going right on top of it with like our hand like really close to our.
That is true. It makes you hold it like farther back so your hand doesn't like rest on the forms. That's true. Just like a super secret sonic teacher teaching you without even realizing it. Okay, we've got time. We're going to finish this tablescape this hour. I also want you to develop some speed with shading, okay? If you're going real slow, that's totally fine. It's not a bad thing. But I want you to develop confidence in your hand pressure and movement so you can shade things a little quicker in the future. Make sure your shadows that are cast onto your objects are nice and dark and actually look like cast shadows. Remember, the cube is a little different than our cylindrical forms. It's not as easy like reflected highlight, core shadow, highlight. Because each surface should have a transition. Each of those three sides. Farthest away from the light source should be darkest. Direct light should be lightest. Oh my gosh. What the heck? Oh, I'm recording this. That was just it.
Wait, what?
Just talking to myself mostly. Just talking to myself. Nice, good blended technique. And check your hand. Show me your hand.
I'm not done yet.
Well, make sure your hand's clean.
My hand's pretty clean.
Good. I'm like a huge culprit of this. I'll just be drawing and then all of a sudden.
I've never had that happen to me.
Oh,
Really?
yeah, with markers? Oh my god. That happens to me with markers a lot.
Oh, it doesn't matter what I'm in. I'll be smearing stuff all over. A lot of times when I'm drawing, I have to have another sheet of paper to put my hand on.
Because I get to like put my hand on the pencil.
Keep shading while you talk. Keep shading. Rainbows, like. Oh, me too. I think like something about the caps. I don't know. I'm like, it's just all over me. Sometimes I'll go to the bathroom and I'll be like, oh, I have blue paint on my face. It's 6th hour and I haven't painted 2nd hour. Nobody told me that I have blue paint on my face. Like.
I do that all the time. I do that with mascara right here.
Oh my gosh. I'm totally done with makeup. But yeah, and when you're like doing your mascara and then you're like, achoo! And you get like, and then you like, it's like you can't just like cleanly wipe it off. It's like, ugh.
Like that. Nobody told me.
Or if you ever wear lipstick and you like drink coffee and then you like your bottom lip like gets your lipstick on your chin. Thanks for telling me. That's why I'm done with makeup. You guys just get what you get. Okay, and we're gonna do cross hatching behind the table, okay? At least on the far side of it. and like moving down a little bit, okay? Because we have time. Doing that very lazily, but whatever. This week, I need to make sure every one of you has these two things, okay? Not just the ultra fine Sharpie from the Zentangle, but the skinny liner as well. So over the next 2 days when you guys come into class, make sure I give these to you, okay? People at home, make sure I give them to you. Because then that way you have two London. This is a good thing. Your cylinders are about to push that dark right there. So push it a little bit. And then if we have this done and we have even more time, let's go ahead and shade the table. The table is going to be one large gradient from dark to light, closest to your light source, okay? One large gradient. Your shadows should still stand out as shadows on your table. Keep your directional line consistent. I'm going to make mine horizontal. Don't go too dark on your table. Keep it a little bit lighter than your cast shadows. We're going to get in that even pressure as you go back. Get it nice and light. Oh, jeez. It's my stomach. This is the hour that I like start to get hungry, I guess.
Same. My stomach doesn't growl like a monster though.
Mine sure does. Oh my gosh. I've never been so aware of it this year, except because it's like so, like even the kids that are in the room, like they don't talk. Like, hello. See, nothing. So it's like so much more obvious how loud my stomach is. Okay, that's not good enough crosshatch. You guys might notice that I don't particularly like to hatch and crosshatch. We're going to start working with line tomorrow. What?
I take it's a requirement for school, isn't it? Hatching and cross hatching, if you don't like it.
Well, it's part of our curriculum, and it is like effective in certain areas. I just personally, I'm not that good at it. I end up using like pressure techniques anyway when I'm hatching and cross hatching. Miss Locke's much better at hatching and cross hatching than I am. She's like more linear, I'm more like pressure. But I'm like, you know, decent enough to teach it enough. Check your hands, is it still clean? And you got a little bit there, Anthony. Good.